Hello, I'm Navbahor Imamova reporting for you from Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan. This is our first historic, I should say, interview from the Uzbek capital, and I have decided to do that interview with someone who has come from the United States a few months ago to be the Deputy Minister for Innovation and Development, but now he's holding a new position. Let's just say that he got promoted pretty rapidly within the system, facing the challenges. Atabek Nazirov, he is the Deputy Minister for Public Education. How did you end up here, really? Like, we've known each other since 2005.
Very long time.
And 13 years ago, when we met at a coffee shop in Washington, it was a different world. And we did talk about our dreams.
Future.
Yes, and goals for Uzbekistan, but neither of us obviously imagined that I, as a VOA journalist, would be sitting here, freely doing this interview with a high-level Uzbek official, and it's you.
Not so high, but a government official, now part of Ministry of Education, Public Education, and I'm very excited. As you said, it's been a very long road. I wasn't really planning. I always thought of doing public service in the United States or elsewhere, but Uzbekistan, I think, we're here in higher demand. People like yourself, like myself, with international qualifications and experience are in very high demand, particularly those who have left the country and have the understanding of our culture and the way of living. So I'm pleased to be back, and I'm very happy to see you doing this interview.
You had a good job. I mean, you had the best of both worlds. You were already working with the Uzbek government as a representative of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. You could have continued that path. I mean, you already had an impact on the processes here in Uzbekistan, but then you chose to get in.
I think, Navbahor, this was very philosophical decision for me. I have done my banking and financing work for close to 20 years. And the question was not about what I could have learned, but the question where I could have made an impact. And with opportunity, doing public service in Uzbekistan, I could not have refused the offer. And I'll tell you, being able to impact lives, improving people's lives on such a massive scale is a once-in-a-lifetime choice, opportunity. And it's not a matter of, what kind of, salary you make, what kind of lifestyle you manage. It's about the impact you can make in this world on people doing public service.
Well, it's one thing to want to get in, and you were in. But how did that happen? How did you get in?
It was it was not a complicated process. The president of Uzbekistan, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, came to New York last year to meet at the General Assembly. And he met with some of the countrymen then, and he made it public that he would like to see some of us to come back and join the government and maybe even doing other things. So it was a clear message. And then when I was working at EBRD, working closely with Uzbek government and re-engaging the bank to Uzbekistan, I was meeting various people, including the ambassador of Uzbekistan in London, and other people in Senate, Senator Safayev, for example. And we started discussing, and
You basically started
I said, look, I'm interested. I would like to come back and make a contribution. So the process started, discussions were initiated, various interviews, and the offer was made. So here I am, rolled my sleeves, and doing my part.
And you had zero government experience before this. I know you've always wanted to do public service, but you hadn't really had any political experience, right? So, I mean, this is a completely new chapter for you? You basically, you're like throwing yourself into the fire.
I think so. It's throwing into a fire, and it's kind of taking on the challenge. You know, we develop personally, and for me, it is also personal development, learning how
Challenging yourself.
challenging
Exactly.
myself with new tasks, and they're enormous. You know, it's like you're going into territory, and you had no prior kind of proper training. But the whole point is that the government here, the leadership here, is giving you the opportunity, and they're giving you a chance.
And it has
to come
convinced you that it needs you.
People like ourselves, like you, people
So
like me.
when the announcement came out, and when the world found out that Atabek Nazirov is now part of this very ambitious reform agenda, this very ambitious government in Uzbekistan, a lot of people were asking questions like, how did they convince him? What kind of offer did he get? What was the offer from Tashkent?
Well, it was an offer I could not refuse, Navbahor. The title and the responsibility giving with that, the expectations from someone like me, and the carte blanche that giving to facilitate and be part of the reform, I think it's huge. You don't get offers like that day to day.
And you were hired as a deputy to the Minister for Innovation and Development. And within a few months, you are at a different position.
Yes.
How did that happen? Was that your choice, or were you moved?
It was an offer by the leadership again. Our team from Ministry of Innovation was asked to come and take a lead at the Ministry of Education, because it's a ministry that is responsible for such a huge sector. You know, we have 5 million students in public education. We have 500,000 teachers. Yeah, we have 10,000 schools, and this system was not giving proper attention over the last 25
This is
years.
the system that has suffered most.
This is different, exactly, and the leadership acknowledging that. So, because we proved ourselves as a team at the Ministry of Innovation, we were giving a chance to do the similar and to take leadership here. And the Minister Sherzod Shermatov, who was the Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Innovation, was asked to lead this ministry and bring his team along, and I joined. And I tell you, with regards to impact that we make here and the problems that we need to solve here, they're massive. They're huge. As I mentioned, the number of schools, number of teachers that are impacted, and the reforms that we need to make so that we give right resources, financial, human capital, administrative, to facilitate public education. It's important. It's the future of the country. It is the future of the country. And if we keep putting it at the end, the consequences could be very heavy.
How big is the ministry?
The ministry itself here, we have about 100 people at the moment at the head of office, but we have more in regions and in the cities. Yeah, but as I said, altogether the ministry employs about 500,000 people.
You just had a big meeting with President Mirziyoyev, and you have, obviously you have met him before, right?
Yes.
How often do you see him?
Well, you don't see President too often because he has obviously very busy schedule. You know, he's managing the whole country. But when we're giving an opportunity to see him, we do disclose all of our findings and issues. So this was the first time we met him to give him a summary and feedback on the problems and we identified and what solutions we would recommend to improve these problems. So it was a very candid discussion, very honest discussion, and I'm so impressed with President Mirziyoyev. I'm so impressed with his ability to stay on top of things, his ability even to listen. He gave chance to each one of us to openly give our feedback and our proposals, what we could do at the Ministry of Education to improve the conditions of the teachers, to improve the conditions for the students, and what plan we have for the future. I think the country is so lucky to have a president like that, and I'm very lucky to be part of his government.
Do you feel like you're treated differently because you're representing so much? I mean, you're seen as a global person with a Western experience, from with the private sector experience. Obviously, you were the first Uzbek American joining the system. How did they receive you?
Look, Navbahor, I cannot single out and say, look, that was the approach. It depends on people, but I don't think I'm treated differently. I'm treated the same way, except that there are a lot of expectations from me. There are a lot of expectations on the experience I can bring, and I'm giving the chance. Whatever idea I have, whatever proposal I put on the table, we debate, we discuss. So that's impressive. And obviously, as I said, the expectations to not only to do something on my own, but also to engage the contacts I have, the friends I have, to come and make a contributions are also huge. And I think one of my probably biggest assets is ability to negotiate and talk with financial institutions, with donors, a kind of financial management skills that I have and I can bring here. And I'm giving a green light to facilitate as much of that as possible.
And the personal experience, I mean, you have a family, they're based in the West, you have children, you have your wife, and I've met her before, and I'm sure it has been difficult for them. I mean, you have sacrificed a lot financially. Let's just,
Well, financially is why I don't think it's that important. We can make financial sacrifices, but making a family sacrifice been a bit bigger part, and I'm thankful to having such a great support of my family. My wife, very well, my 3 children, they're all supportive. We have discussed this in detail, how we're going to handle this. But for the summer, my wife has joined me with my little son. 2 of my children are on the way.
They're in college, right?
They're in college. My 2 boys are in college. And, I've made my commitment. I will maintain my commitment. And then we'll see after that. As I said, I not bind it here, but I'd like to make as much as possible. I'd like to share as much possible of experience I have. And as I said, my second probably priority is to send a message to folks like myself to say, look, the chance is unique. You don't need to wait on the sideline. If there is someone out there who really thinking seriously that he can make a contribution to the reform agenda and join the team, they'll be very welcome. And I'll provide guidance, I'll provide support, including in our ministry and what we can do. But people should be ready to make sacrifices, including personal sacrifices.
And can it be something short-term?
Absolutely. Absolutely short-term. And as I said, we have project work, tasks. They could last 1 month, they could last, some of them, 6 months. And we would look forward to bringing people to help us with that too.
And so as someone who's come in as an outsider, right, who's now slowly sort of learning the system, trying to make a difference at the same time, finding that golden mean to be effective, right, within the system, what would be your advice to those who are saying, is it worth to make that sacrifice? I have a nice job at the World Bank, I have a nice job at some bank, let's say, people with similar experiences like yours. And you just said that, if you want it, come. It's a calling, right? This is the moment. But then there are fears. People don't want to take risks. People don't know enough about the Uzbek government.
I had that fear. I had that fear.
People try to convince you otherwise.
Even as I was expecting that, something is cooked already, as I was expecting, there might be an offer coming up, I still had my fear saying, listen, what am I getting myself into? Will I be able to survive? Will my family support? And it was very difficult, I'll tell you, personally. But then something happened. There was a click in my head. I said, look, I made a decision. The worst thing might happen. I do my term and I can return. Yeah, it's not something, we always change jobs.
I have heard many Uzbek Americans like you, both men and women, say that I'm going to wait a bit more. I'm going to wait a bit more and see where the system goes. Let's see what this system is capable of for now. and then I'll think about joining the government or going back to Uzbekistan and make my own difference. How long is it okay to wait, in your view? And see.
Well, there are risks. Yeah, you could wait. I'm not saying it's for everybody, Navbahor. It's not for everybody. But what you get now is an opportunity to be part of something bigger than yourself. As I said before, you have an opportunity to contribute. And as we talked earlier, teams are being built at the moment. Okay?
This is a crucial time.
This is the time. This is the time. And as I said, it's not for everybody. But the scope is so large in terms of what each of us could do here. And all you need to do is say, I want to take that little risk. And the purpose of that should be bigger than yourself. As I said, here we have a chance to influence, to foster, to make recommendations, policy level recommendations, reforms. There are so many aspects, judicial reform, investment climate reforms, even public service reform. There's so much. And if someone out there who is thinking, look, I'm willing to do something small, the door's open. And this is the message I'll send. Everybody's welcome.
So, you are a part of the reforming group of the public education system, which means that you basically have to interact and work with all the other spheres,
yes.
And then, fields, and
yes.
then the ministries and everything. So the big question on the minds of many people outside of Uzbekistan is, how strong is this reform team? How strong? We know that this is an ambitious reform agenda, but is the government within itself in sync in terms of the goals, in terms of the steps forward? Do you feel like you're a part of this?
I think government is very, very committed. The president is super committed. As I mentioned earlier, we're so lucky to have someone like President Mirziyoyev to lead this country. It's a crucial moment. We have support on the very top level, and every government member under him is as committed. The second question, obviously, each, reform might have different options, right? There is no one single solution to any problem, right? So what we have a chance here to do now is to debate. Even within the ministry, oftentimes within ourselves, we have a lot of debates. I might have one view on solving a problem, someone else have a different view. And the amazing thing here is that we have a chance to debate and the best idea wins. And the similar thing is happening across across various departments and ministries. And initiative, you take an initiative, you go with it. If you can convince people, your idea wins.
Many skeptics say that, fine, the Uzbek government has a very strong will to change now, to make a change. But just wanting is not enough. You need to have a very strong roadmap. You need to have a strong action plan. Is there an action plan so far in terms of reforming the public education?
We're working on the concept at the moment. Since the last 3 weeks we've been here, we reviewed, made a best effort to identify all the key problems that we had. And again, the resources are tight. The biggest problem is human capital. So whatever resource we had, we managed to put that together. We drafted a couple of proposals for the president on reforming. We have a roadmap, a draft roadmap that we developed. We also proposed a concept of the strategy development of the public education. There was a lot of work done already prior, so we need to ensure we kind of consolidate all that together. And over the course of the next week or two, you will hear, public disclosure of those documents, and we'll be working on the concept, 10-year concept strategy for reform of the public sector. And there are many components, the we're even reviewing the entire modules. How do we need to teach? What do we want to teach? How do we finance that? Where do we get the support? It's a very complex process.
How can the international community help? Obviously, there are many assistance groups who are eager to get into Uzbekistan.
Well, we engaged, Navbahor. We engaged. We discussed. Yesterday I had a meeting with the World Bank representatives. We have another meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock with the delegation of the World Bank, who is providing institutional support to help us, for example, with financial management system. So that's being discussed at the moment. We're working with UNICEF, with UNESCO. We're working with UNDP.
How about with various governments?
We do discuss with governments too. I'm hopefully visiting South Korea with our big team in 2 weeks' time and meet officials in Korea to discuss and review their experience. And even with the U.S. government, we initiated discussions on what we can do. For example, re-engage with the Flex program. We're even discussing re-engaging Peace Corps. So it's very active, Navbahor, very active.
Renewing exchange programs, perhaps?
Exactly.
So basically, you're open to work with anyone?
We work carefully with everybody who's willing to support and really, give us right structural recommendations, and we will then select, the best ideas. What we're doing now, we're reviewing the world experience. Mm-hmm. Okay, in Finland, in Switzerland, in UK, even Russia. The Russian influence is huge, and demand for example, Russian public teaching is very huge. We want to support that too. So we're open to all best ideas. And as I said, the biggest problem we have is lack of human capital and time.
And the development of those things are essentially dependent on your work. Here.
Exactly.
Yeah, here
exactly.
as someone whose job is to improve the public education sector in this country.
I hope.
Wow, lots of challenges, obviously. What has been the biggest lesson so far that you have learned here in Uzbekistan?
The biggest lesson? I had no idea how much I would be involved throughout, the entire government in policy making, and how open the people I'm working with would be, receptive to ideas that you share, and you're really taking seriously here. And again, I'm nobody. I have experience, but I'm not someone, who have that status. I'm an average banker who came and joined the government. But despite that, you are taken very seriously by everybody in the country, and you're giving every chance and every opportunity to share your knowledge and make your recommendations. So the message I would send to someone like myself who are willing to come back to say, look, drop all your expectations. Don't expect anything. Just be ready to come and join the reform programs. Join the government if you offer it. If not, there are other things to do. The private sector, NGOs, anything. It's fun to be here. It's the best time to be here.
And you don't need political connections.
You don't need political connections. It's always good to have political connections, but it's what's up here.
Well, so far so good. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.